Julio, time to record the next Pokken Moveset crafting video for Draco. Hello? What was that loud noise with murderous intent? Aw, is your wheel Cascoon? With a knife! Oh, okay. Are you one of those people who are trying to beg me to eat an orange because I feel like this is a bit extreme? I owe money? To whom? The Expedition Society? This ain't Wigglytuff's guild. They allow me to keep 100% of the profits I make. New policies, huh? Well, I don't have the money right now. You're gonna have to wait a few weeks. I already spent it all on 5 Trico plushes. And a yacht. But I don't have the money right now. Can you give me a few weeks, please? I literally cannot help it. What are you gonna do? Stab me? I can't pay you back if I'm dead. Oh my god, you're gonna do what? I see, Mr. Cascoon, sir, but I have a proposition for you. I want my life and you want your money. So how about this? Hello, this is Jukem Waller being here against my will by this Cascoon, and he said it's okay to make an intro like this because there's nothing you can do to stop him anyway, so but still, please send help. I appreciate any attempt because I need to get away from this freaking mad lad. Oh my god, he's gonna kill me someday probably. But yes, in the meantime, I will have to begrudgingly on this April Fool's Day teach you guys what would it be like if Cascoon with a knife would be in Pokkén Tournament DX for the Nintendo Switch system. I'm gonna freaking cry. Cascoon here. He is my little buddy, question mark. And we are gonna learn how to play with Cascoon today. So what kind of Cascoon is what kind of Pokemon is what kind of Pokemon is Cascoon? Well, this is not doing any favors to him. I'm so sorry. Last night I said I'd pay you back. But yes, Cascoon is the Cocoon Pokemon, is the evolved form of Wurmple, and later into Dustox, but you don't really need that right now, because he's already mad enough already. If he already turned into Dustox, then he just freaking murdered my ass right now, with no hesitation. But yes, what makes the Wurmple line's evolution much more unique than other Pokemon's evolution is that Wurmple can evolve into either Cascoon or Silcoon at random. Silcoon goes into Beautifly, obviously Wurmple, Cascoon goes into Dustox. Cascoon cover themselves in a silk cocoon to protect themselves before evolution. Now, while they want to stay protected, they can't really move around, or else when they evolve, they'll become weakened. So they kind of like have to endure the hits. And because of that, they have pent-up anger and seek revenge as soon as they evolve. But for this little guy, he chooses to not evolve just so he can get revenge in a cocoon-like state and show people whose boss he is. So I guess that's good for you. I respect the determination, but please do not slice my neck right now. You can see the fear in my eyes. He doesn't care what I say. But yes, it stays still at all times unless it's like this little guy, and then once it evolves, it seeks revenge against him because it's just like, I'll never forget, don't forget me, and all that type of jazz. Ooh, baby. The cells in its body give it the energy it needs to actually evolve. And for known Cascoon, well, first off, if anyone has watched the anime, that's where the main Cascoon, like, appeared. Because Cascoon itself is not really too known, but, like, Jessie from the anime, from Team Rocket, had a Cascoon of her own, evolved from Wurmple to Cascoon. She thought it was a Silcoon, and she was like, I want a Beautifly, too, after seeing May get one. And then it's like, oh, it was a Dustox. And then she loved it anyway, because Dustox is, in fact, superior. And I'm not just saying this to, like, make you happy or anything. I do like Dustox more than Beautifly. And I think Cascoon actually does have a neat design. Okay, that might be buttering him up a bit. But besides that, in Journeys, Go has like 3 Cascoon that evolved into Dustox because he's like, I want to catch all the Pokemon. So I'm catching 3 of them just so hopefully one of them will be a Silcoon. All of them were Cascoon. That's basically what Cascoon is. It's not too known of a Pokemon, kind of just being known as an early game bug Pokemon they can get on the Hoenn region. Next up, let's go to how would it play? It would be the worst character in the game until it's not, actually. Mainly from its unique mechanic, but I'll get to that in just a sec. It also has a knife to help it with its revenge plot against anything that freaking attacks it. But you know what? That's not the point. It's totally fine having a freaking cocoon with a knife. But yeah, this does help it give him more range though, which is really good for fighting games. Now it does rely on its unique mechanic, but its unique mechanic is kind of good and it's like kind of hard to play around because I'll get to it. You kind of have to, like, it's about damage taking, and you really need to damage your opponent in order to beat them. So, you know, it does have other moves that utilize this mechanic to make it a lot more threatening. And, of course, its small size really does help it avoid certain attacks. Though it also means without its knife, for certain attacks, it does have lack of range. This does include giving itself debuffs to take advantage of, which is very unique for a character. But yeah, as a freaking fighting cocoon, it does make sense for it to be a technical character, but also have a lot of HP and a strong block, so 660 HP. Now for the main deal, which is its Harden grudge mechanic. Using its 5A or Release A, it can take advantage of the opponents hitting it. While it does take minimized damage from these moves, it powers up its command grab, so it's 6A, 4A, and 8A. It's like a grappler, I forgot to mention that. This Cascoon with a knife is a grappler character. But it's a fun grappler, I feel, right? Yeah. Now the reason for this being powered up is actually it stores the damage taken into it, and it's put into a little grudge count. The more Cascoon takes, the much stronger it becomes. Obviously, this reset doesn't get carried over between rounds, but there is no limit, so you could probably take like 600 damage for one command grab if you keep hitting your hits on like its 5A or Release A. Now, when the command grabs are powered up, it doesn't actually change the animation until it reaches 100 damage, in which case Cascoon will then use its knife. Not only is this just showing how strong it's become from taking so much damage, especially with the bloodlust in its eyes as it twinkles, but this also knocks them down instead of just resetting them like the command grabs usually would. And then he can also manipulate this grudge count with its up and low stances too. So there's a little more depth into it when besides just using its stances. But you mainly want to use it for the freaking damaging command grabs. No, Cascoon, please, you're so sexy. Please don't freaking command grab me in the corner and make me take 600 damage. Ha 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 ha. Help. Before I lose my mind, let's go to its notable general attacks and traits, because I literally cannot change this title name. It's just trademarked, I guess. I don't know. Now, Cascoon by itself doesn't really have much to work with. Oh, I accidentally read that word for word up there. Oopsie. But it can use tackles and other webbing stuff because it is a bug. But it also has its knife, obviously. It also has other types of maneuvers with its round body, as I put up there. I don't know what I mean by that, but you know. It also uses the silk for its grabs because it can't really use hands per se. It also uses webbing for its like knife to like extend its reach for certain attacks, which is pretty cool because it also doesn't have feet. It kind of has to hop around. Now these hops for its walk and dashes means it does take a little bit of time before it can go into its next hop, so it kind of goes like bah. So it's not like a continuous walk, but to make up for this, it becomes airborne whenever it does this, so it's immune to lows. This does mean it does activate things like Rotom, and it can be hit into like an air combo or something when moving around, and it can't really block when it's doing that. But, you know, it's still a very unique thing, and it can start using, like, its aerial moves very low to the ground in order to start a combo, or to use a setup move that I will mention earlier for its JA. Obviously, it does have a bigger jump for its normal jump, but yeah, this is just basically like a small jump that you can use for, like, very, very low attacks. For its 8Y, Cascoon extends its knife out with some silk, so, like, it spews it out from, like, its mouth thing or whatever, and then it swings it upward to hit anyone who's in the air. This is just kind of like a standard anti-air. It does have good range, knocks the opponent into the air for an air combo, knocks the opponent back if it's not an air hit, you know, usual stuff. But on crit, it does launch them into the air if they're on the ground. Not really a grab crush, but in the case where you do get a crit on the ground, it's still useful for that. Now, usually I have a hard time like explaining with my words of what I mean when I write this stuff down, but luckily Cascoon has agreed with me to use them as like sort of a prop in order to help visualize it a bit better. So for its 8X, it turns sideways. So what I mean by that, I mean like it turns like this, with its knife out like this, and then it actually just starts spinning with its knife to attack multiple times. So it hits 5 times, and it pushes the opponent back when hit normally. On crit, though, it launches them up and away. This knocks them down, but it can combo if they do a wall splat. So it doesn't normally combo if it's like mid-screen, but it does knock them down, and Cascoon can then set up. Really, the only move it can use when it gets a crit normally after this is a 6A. And because 6A is one of its command grabs, it does scale quite a bit just because it's like, oh, my my grudge count is at 600. Well, I guess I'll just do a crit 8X into my 6A, and then I just freaking myrtleize you. No, it'll only do like 300 damage. No big deal, no big deal. And also, depending on if you're holding like up, left, or up, right, Cascoon will actually move left or right a bit when it's using its 8X. Now for its stances, I mentioned this before for its Harden grudge mechanic, but for its high stance, Cascoon loses 10 HP every second and holds it, which becomes great HP. So it can't heal it off from like winning field phase or anything. These HP losses per second actually get added into its Harden grudge count. It's really good whenever your Cascoon just gets the chance, whenever he doesn't want to set up and he just wants to get more powerful. So it's decent for if your opponent's knocked down right in front of you and you're like, okay, I have nothing better to do. I'm just gonna do my up stance for a second, get 10 more damage on my command grabs that I want to use on their wake up, and yeah. And as a minor thing, because it does damage itself, it also increases its synergy meter a bit, which is pretty cool, I guess. For its low stance, while Cascoon may be a hot-headed fellow who wants to murder all of its enemies, it does have a softer side too. It'll actually heal 10 gray HP per second when it's low stance, and this actually gets subtracted from its grudge count. Now, if its grudge count isn't high enough, it'll either do 0 or whatever number is left. So like if there's like 8 left, it'll heal like 8. Basically, it can only heal if there's anything in the grudge count. So it can't even heal if it's at 0. It also doesn't lose anything from its grudge count if it has no gray health. And this is actually very useful because its other effect is that it's immune to highs on frame 1. So if you don't have any gray health, you can use it to just avoid highs for a long time without having to worry about your grudge count going down. Now, I have 2 visual representations actually. One for Cascoon and one with my headphones to represent the silk it uses. The AY is a bit more simple, but for its counterattack, it's kind of getting a little weird. So basically, Cascoon, for its counterattack, spins its knife in a circle like a helicopter blade. So basically, it's going like this. This is so bad, I'm sorry. But basically, it goes like this, and it extends outward a bit. I can't really, like, do it without, like, banging my freaking headphones on the table. But you guys get it. It, like, extends outward a bit as it's, like, spinning. And this is a multi-hit. That goes pretty far. Because this is attached to Silk, obviously it'll get back to Cascoon. There's no mechanic where he, like, loses his knife, thank God. It deals 4 hits, and its range goes to around less than mid-range. Normally only pushes them back far away, but on crit or when fully charged, it does also launch them to the air, so they'll get knocked down for a setup opportunity. Of course, Cascoon does have to get in against them again because they do push them away, but they do get near to the wall, and Cascoon can also use this if he's at the wall just so he can get out of it. I mean, he has, like, plenty of time to get to them anyway. They're knocked down. It deals a good amount of damage, though it does scale a bit because you can do, like, some funky wall combo stuff, and because it deals a lot of damage, it seems only fair. You can't do a million damage for your counterattacks, only your grabs, baby. I swear, the longer this guy stands on my shoulder, I don't mind getting stabbed by him. I mean, what? For both of its grabs, it wraps the silk around the opponent, so I'm just gonna mention the other part besides that, because I'm lazy. For its field grab, after it puts them in the silk, it starts spinning them around, and Cascoon goes vertically and starts ramming into them with its knife, cutting them multiple times, like a freaking Sonic the Hedgehog spin dash or something. I bet you main Sonic and Smash, you freaking masher. But yeah, it's like a normal field phase grab after that. It knocks them back a bit, nothing else. I forgot to mention, but its normal grabs don't get affected by its hardened grudge count, just the command grabs. For its dual phase grab, after it puts them in the silk, it launches them up into the air by swinging it up like this or whatever, but then it slams them back down to the ground. After it does that, Cascoon then dashes forward with a powerful stab with its knife and launches them away with a knockdown. For both of these grabs, it does apply a speed down onto them, because, you know, the silk, it's like string shot or something. I don't fucking know. Yeah, now that we got that giant wall text out of the way, let's go to its 5A, Harden, not Harden Grudge, Harden. Oh my goodness, I'm so stupid. You'll forgive me, right? No, I still owe it debt. But yes, Harden. This is the main move that Cascoon's going to use in order to increase its grudge count. You can tell it's related because I accidentally said Harden Grudge instead of just Harden. That's the joke, haha! Harden you would expect to be like a counter armor, but no, it's a red armor. It's red armor because he still has to take the damage in order to absorb it, and then it gets added into his grudge count. That's the main use of this move. It does reduce the damage it takes by half. The damage taken into it is the same amount of damage the attacks would do normally. So just an example, a move that does like 50 is going to add 50 to the grudge count, but it'll only do 25 to Cascoon. Because this is red armor and not counterattacks, grabs can't actually hit through this, though it doesn't actually gain anything for its grudge count because of it, because it doesn't do damage until the actual throw animation. However, because it is red armor, it still does take the PSB from the attack, so phase shift can happen. It'll still absorb it for its grudge count, but it will get phase shifted, and if there's a wall, then it kind of gets half its like gray health gone, which kind of sucks for it, though it does have a lot of HP to make up for it and make mistakes like this. This hardened state lasts for around 1 second, but you can hold the A button to make it last for 2 seconds. This is useful for being able to guard through attacks a lot longer, but it also makes it a bit of a mix-up because it's kind of like, oh, when will he stop using Harden? He can release it a little earlier than usual and not just do the 2 seconds. He can just do like 1.5 seconds or something like that, so it's a little mix-up. It can get pierced from attacks because, like I said, it's red armor, so it can be pierced. This pierce won't actually be absorbed into the hardened grudge count. When it's done, it does show a little animation for a tiny bit just to show it's vulnerable for a second and can be punished. Now, because it's short, it can kind of use this move as a bit of a parry, so it can armor through a move before punishing the opponent. It's not like a true, like, kind of like parry-like move, but it can be used for that. And because it can be let go between 1 and 2 seconds, this does make it a little versatile because it can choose when it wants to let go of its guard and then punish the opponent back. Now, this move is really, really good against non-piercing projectiles because it can do it from a distance without having to worry about letting go in front of the opponent's face if it's like a medium move it's using it on. But against projectiles, it just profits off the projectile for its grudge count. Finally, for Harden, it can actually use this move in the air with the J2A input. Because its dashes and walk put it into the air, it can't block, so it can use this to cover itself when it's trying to approach the opponent. Now, it does mean that it's going to be leaving itself a little wide open a lot longer when it lands on the ground, because there's like the little animation I mentioned before, when it could usually just like hop once and then be able to block. But it's still useful for the opponents trying to like see it's approaching and then try to punish it, and you're like, oh, you actually just helped it with his hardened grudge. GG, you're prepared to take 500 points of damage because you tried to hit him when he's trying to approach you. Yep, grapplers totally aren't a mistake in the slightest. Okay, now that's the main move, but now we gotta get to the grappling moves. First off, we have its 6A, which is String Shot. This is the move that I mentioned before that Crit 8X can combo into. With it, Cascoon launches a string of silk from its mouth forward. Obviously, it's a command grab, and it reaches almost full screen, so it's a pretty long one. It does take a bit to get to full screen, though. It's not like an instant thing, it's kind of like an over time thing. thing, but it can reach that far, which makes it really, really good. All of its command grabs have something different that they can offer when it comes to like range and stuff. It's kind of a decent move for Oki if the opponent is knocked down pretty far away from Cascoon. The reason for this is because after the opponent gets grabbed by the string shot, Cascoon then pulls them back towards it. This applies a speed down, and as soon as they get near Cascoon, Cascoon then charges forward to deal a little amount of damage. It doesn't knock them down, like I mentioned before. All these command grabs don't knock them down, only when it gets above 100 points for its grudge count. While I will use props for this as the string and this for Cascoon, I will not be using a knife, which he agreed upon, because if I stab myself by accident, I can't give him any money. Instead of the tackle, when it happens, it actually charges forward and kind of like goes onto the opponent, like rushing them down, jumping onto them, and then stabbing them and down to the ground like that. So like, oh, I punched him. No, please don't hurt me. No. Long live the king. But yeah, stabs them before bringing him down. And now, the thing I forgot to mention is that for command grabs that deal debuffs, it actually makes the debuff last a bit longer too. So in this case, a longer speed debuff. Kind of a simple move, long range move, doesn't go too far right away. It is a bit slower compared to the other command grabs. And well, speaking of the other command grabs, let's go to its next one. Its foray is Bug Bite. Now for Bug Bite, it has less range than String Shot, but it's also a lot quicker and has different effects. Doesn't give a debuff, but I'll get right to that. For its starter, it lunges forward and then bites the opponent. He has no mouth. I don't know how to describe this. He kind of just grabs onto him with its nothing face or whatever. It's a command grab. After this initial bite, it then bites the opponent a lot more times. I would assume the camera angle would go in a way to where you can't actually see it happening. So it's like, why would, so you can't really question it by seeing it. It's only just like from his behind or whatever. But yeah, after biting them for a bit, Cascoon then hops back a bit and then tackles forward against them. Now, what makes this move unique, just all around for Pokken mechanics wise, it actually steals debuffs. Now, you might think Scissors Bug Bite, oh, that steals buffs. This one steals debuffs, and that's for a later move I'll mention. It also steals 10 synergy power, so it gets a small amount. When it's reached high enough with its Harden Grudge, after Cascoon backs up, instead of performing a tackle, it actually performs a dashing slash that crosses the opponent up and knocking them down. Kind of like a badass move he performs, and also steals 10 more synergy power, so 20 in total. That's it for Bug Bite. All around, it's kind of like his most consistent command grab. It's kind of like just like a regular grab. It's slower than a regular grab, but basically like a regular grab. How many times can I say regular? I have no idea. But for its other two grabs, it's kind of like only in specific circumstances, common circumstances, but not as like common as being like right in front of your opponent for like a regular grab. What makes this cool is because its normal grabs also apply a speed debuff. If you didn't have enough for your grudge count, but you also wanted to have a debuff on the opponent, you could just go for your regular grabs instead of Bug Bite. Okay, so now we're up to the point where I'm like, okay, I've said a lot of moves. What's his next move going to be? Tackle or something? Well, for those who don't know, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon gave Cascoon a million things that I did not realize. Actually, it's not that much, but it's like a lot of things you wouldn't expect it to have. For example, did you know it gets Electroweb with its 8A for its 8A? Yeah, when I was making this for the little guy, I looked at his moveset, I'm like, can I actually do it? And he was just like, hell yeah, you can. Like, look at all this shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I just can. Now, this is what I meant when I said that two other command grabs besides Bug Bite are kind of like situational uses for being far away, or in this case, it's an anti-air. Cascoon fires an electrified web upwards, and anyone who's in the air gets caught in the web. Grounded opponents can't get a hit at all, but those who do get hit in the air do get a speed down. It's also a frame 1 anti-air like Loose Storm, because why not? As they fall down to the ground, Cascoon then backs up and guess what? Performs a tackle. This actually makes it seem like Libre's Electroweb in that case. I did not actually think of the tackle part as part of it too, like Libre's. But you know, whatever. Fine, this is fine. Totally fine. I don't even remind of Libre in this video. I'm already being threatened enough. But yeah, as you know, after it reaches a certain point with its Hardened Grudge, it then uses its knife. This is actually a pretty cool animation, I thought, despite it being for this little guy. He actually goes behind the opponent, stabs them with its knife, and then using a piece of silk throws them back. So it's not like a cross-up, but it's like kind of cool because he just goes behind the opponent, like stab, and then throws them back. Obviously, like String Shot, it gives him a longer speed debuff and knocks him down. Now, the good thing about these command grabs, besides the fact that they deal like 500 damage if you have enough in your Hardened Grudge, is that they're pretty simple. It means less work for me here. So, you know what? It's fine. Let's go to its next move, though, which is 2A, Poison Sting. Now, as you see from the dust dots on the right, you would expect it, oh, it's like that. It's like a projectile. It's like Krogunk's Poison Sting. Actually, no. It actually just imbues the poison into its knife. For lots of fun. Cascoon spews poison into its knife and has it pointed outward, which is now represented by my hand, by the way. And then after that, he spins like a freaking Beyblade of destruction, obviously hitting behind it too, before doing a horizontal slash upwards all around it. Believe it or not, this is a DP and has counter armor on frame 1 and throughout most of it. And while punishable on block, it is a great tool for getting the opponent off of it. Cascoon can also move left or right during this slightly, kind of like its 8X, and because of this, it can actually mess up the opponent's like timing for trying to punish it, because it can end its block sting a little sooner than usual. All around, the move hits 5 times and gives the opponent a defense defense debuff. And like any good DP, it hits the opponent into the air and knocks them down. The one other weakness of this move, besides the fact it can be grabbed or punished on block, is that it doesn't hit vertically besides the final hit. It can only hit horizontally. So basically the only time it's going to be able to hit opponents who are in the air is during that last slash. And while it does have good range for it, it can be hit out of the move before the final slash even occurs if it gets hit in the air. Simple move really, just a kind of like cooler DP than something like Lucario's. But yeah, next move it has is its JA, Snore. Now, this one's a little crazy, I will admit. Now you think of Snore as like, oh, that one useless move in the games that you never see, but always see TMs for some reason. Well, in this game, Cascoon makes a loud snore, and it's a sound wave that's kind of like a barrier around it. It doesn't actually delete projectiles or anything. It's a very, very weak attack that's punishable on block, even at like the lowest heights. Even at its walking height, it can be punished if the opponent blocks Snore. It is decently fast, so in air-to-air situations, and it has decent AoE, it can hit the opponent if they're trying to like move around him or try to like, you know, air-to-air him with other hits. Not too strong by itself, but before I mentioned Bug Bite steals debuffs. Now, with debuffs, Snore actually gets changed a bit. While it doesn't get any stronger in this powered up state, it does have wider range, and the big thing here is that the attack pierces through block. You might be asking, why is it pierce through block? I don't know. This is like the only other move Cascoon can learn. I thought it'd be neat and stupid and stuff. Obviously it goes through counters as well, but the attack launches the opponent and knocks them down. Though not too far away from Cascoon, so then it can set up for Oki. When it connects though, it does remove the debuff from Cascoon, so it can't just like spam it over and over and over again. The debuffs don't go away if it does whiff it though. Now, like I mentioned before, it can use this move out of walks and dashes since it's an aerial move. This makes it great for any Oki opportunities when it has a debuff, so then it can just hit the opponent and knock them down again. This is why it's very well complemented with Bug Bite, because if you steal any debuffs you give the opponent from like Electroweb or Poison Sting, then you steal them right after doing like a million damage to them with those two crabs if your Harden grudge count is high. And then if they have a slight amount of HP left because they barely hanged on, then you can be like, hey, I'm cheap, I'm gonna use Snore, this unblockable attack, have fun. Cascoon is all about giving debuffs to help it get in or deal more damage, stealing those debuffs for its own benefit when it's about to kill the opponent, and the opponent lives a bit longer, then it can use Snore to finish them off. This also makes it a fantastic move to get rid of your own debuffs if the opponent gives one to Cascoon itself. Which means if you get hit by something like Yveltal and you can't go into your burst mode, then it's just like, hey, I use Snore. Now I can go to my burst mode anyway. I thought it was a very cool move. I honestly don't want this in the game because it'd be kind of stupid, but you know, kind of running out of options for this freaking Cocoon. I'm surprised it learned Electroweb and, you know, whatever. Anyway, now for its final move. It's Release A, which is Iron Defense. Now, Release A, Iron Defense. Cascoon hardens its body and becomes surrounded in iron. I apologize. But yeah, basically he does surround the body with armor. And this is basically an enhanced version of its already existing 5A. Because that does have many advantages over Harden, it does take 2 seconds to charge up. You can't do something like Harden and then start charging up your Release A and then go into the Iron Defense to like absorb more moves, which is very, very useful. Now it has a decent amount of advantages over Harden. First off, it gives itself a defense debuff throughout the duration of the move. It also has a much greater armor state, as it's not really red armor, it's kind of like just an immunity type thing, while still technically like absorbing the attack. Because it's not so much red armor, it kind of just like absorbs the attack anyway. This does mean that piercing moves won't actually pierce through, and it doesn't actually gain any phase shift points as it gets hit. Sounds really stupid, and you know what? It is! You want stupider? Well, baby, here we go. It actually gains double the amount of its hard grudge, because why the hell not? Am I right? Basically, it means it takes less damage for more reward. The rich just keep on getting richer. It does possess other traits that Harden does have. It can only last 1 second normally. It can be used in the air. If you hold the A button after releasing it, it can go up to 2 seconds. It has that same animation that's shown when it's vulnerable after the move is done, though it is more noticeable because the iron actually like breaks off of it. But yeah, that's basically Iron Defense. It's pretty stupid. It's like just free real estate, honestly. But you know what? That's what makes it fun. And this character is not meant to actually be in the game, but it would be pretty fun if it actually was. Anyway, now that we're done with all its moves, let's go to its Synergy Burst mode. This is gonna be so stupid. Now visually, Cascoon's aura that it has when it's in Synergy Burst is bloody red, with poisonous bubbles also flying around it because, yeah, it has to have nice kid-friendly content right there. I hope you guys can imagine that very well through your minds. Its eyes would also pull a Mega Lucario / Scizor where it would leave a trail as it walks by because it has to show its murderous intent. Someone should put Cascoon in Undertale. Who's gonna win in a fight, Kara or Cascoon with a knife? Now, this is when it gets absurd. For its hardened grudge count, it actually just reaches 250 as the base. Usually the base is just like 50 damage. That's how much I would expect like the normal grabs to do right away is 50. and then 100 after for that. So like 150 is basically when it gets into the knife territory. For its command grabs. For this, it's just at 250 at all the times, and like its command grabs will always do the knife variation. So that's already a lot of damage to begin with. And of course, it can stack this with Harden or Iron Defense, because why not? This is the main change for its synergy burst, so nothing else, because it gets really absurd. It does require 500 CC. For anyone who's new to Pokken, let me give a reference to you about how big this actually is. For Mewtwo, the highest amount of synergy he needs in the game to fill out his meter. He has 400. He only really gets it in round 3 sometimes. Only sometimes. He does use synergy, and Cascoon does have ways of like increasing synergy with like its up stance or bug bite. But most of the time it's not really going to be getting this a lot, but if you do get it, you kind of just win the game. It does last 11 seconds. For its burst attack, Everlasting Pain, I needed to find the edgiest name possible for this little edgelord. He's vibrating profusely. Now this is gonna be some anime shit. Cascoon jumps into the air and summons a giant purple Dustox avatar beneath it, because why not? And then it charges forward for a single hit. Similar to like Blastoise's burst attack, where it's like a single hit moving forward. I also kind of thought of it as like, what's her name? Freaking Zoe in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Her like one of her ultimate attacks where it's just like she rides on her animal forward. I didn't really think of that when coming up with this, but I guess thinking of it like that if you need visual representation. What makes it different from Blastoise and Zoe's attacks though is that it can be used in the air, and when it's in the air it can actually be angled upwards or downwards, so it's just like kind of like a glide as it goes forward. But yeah, it can go angled up and down. Oh, and it can also angle upward when it's already on the ground, so it can be like, hi, I'm on the ground, time to go up, this is my ant here now. But yeah, this goes to around mid-screen. Obviously nothing happens if it misses, and on block is actually minus but not punishable. Actually, you know what, screw it, we've already gone far enough, why not just make it +8? There we go, we're plus. Wait no, very plus. Let's just go with that, because we've already got to the absurd point of this burst, and there's more absurd parts to it, so let's just move on. On hit, the Dustox avatar then grabs the opponent and flies away, transitioning into like a dark forest area. I'm not sure what the transition would be. Maybe kind of like, think of it like, what the transition was just like, you know the SpongeBob like bubble transition? It's that, but it's like poisonous bubbles. That'd be so funny. After that, the Dustox avatar throws him into the air and then surrounds him in like a lot of poisonous webbing, trapping them. Because it's poison, it does deal constant damage over time, and the camera shifts away from the opponent back to Cascoon on its Dustox avatar, who is a bit far away, and its eyes are like the most murderous you'll ever see. They're like seething with red, but because it's also pretty, its knife also twinkles in the moonlight. Yeah, that's cute. The opponent then looks forward, looks at them, and is like, what are you gonna do? Stab me? And then, yeah, that happens. As I say right there, Cascoon does exactly that, and the Dustox avatar flies at them at intense speeds. And because Cascoon's still on it, it tackles into them, and Cascoon stabs them in like the chest. This is a very strong attack with the knife going in pretty deep, and just because why not, Cascoon then jumps off the Dustox avatar, and the Dustox avatar self-destructs into a poisonous explosion that surrounds the entire opponent, because why can't we have overkill in this game? And speaking of overkill, when it does this and it transitions back into field phase, it does all around 400 damage, and it also heals Cascoon by 200 HP, not great health, 200 HP, just actual HP, because why not? As I keep saying, why wouldn't you just want this cute little guy who needs 500 CC of synergy just to go into its burst mode and land the burst mode, just to do that much damage and heal this much? I mean, you're probably gonna die to where the HP doesn't actually matter, but you know, just in case. And then lastly, because say it with me, why not? Cascoon gets a speed down and a defense down. Now you'd be like, oh, that's fair because it just did that much. Actually, it positions itself in a way in field phase where it could just use Snore right after. So if the opponent lives with like 1 HP, like, I can make my comeback. No, take the Snoroki and just die. That's basically just the overpowered attack of Everlasting Pain. You feel all his freaking pain, struggles, and misery. It's very, very fitting. Cascoon, let me see what you have. A knife! No! Anyway, going into its references, I mentioned it at the beginning. These Cascoon just want to like murder people who attack them. Like, I do this, and now he's angry at me. He's gonna kill me after I finish this video. But that's based off its Pokédex entry, and why the Harden grudge mechanic kind of exists. It doesn't want to seek out revenge when it evolves, but I think this little guy just wants to do it right away. Now, the healing stuff, you might be like, okay, why is that in there? It doesn't need to be in there. It was actually based on this Pokédex entry too. Haha, got him. Its low stance and its burst attack for having its heal actually comes from its Pokédex entry, where it talks about how it actually using its cells to create energy for its evolution. So it's like, I'm healing from that instead of just like, I'm preparing to evolve. The Duel Phase grab, because it kind of like wraps them in its silk and then just kind of like slams into the ground before slashing them. It's kind of actually a reference to the Z move, which you can use because it does get bug bite. It's weird to think that Cascoon could use something like the electric Z move. I just realized that because he hits Electroweb. Harden and Iron Defense are defensive stuff, and Iron Defense gives it a defense debuff, so that's pretty good. Works same as the main games, kind of. String Shot and Electroweb, and its grabs, which also basically utilize String Shot, give it a speed down, which is the same as the main games. Bug Bite being able to steal stuff, in this case Synergy Power, and debuffs is a reference to the main games where it actually can consume the opponent's items when hit, so like berries basically. But it steals different stuff here because God forbid we have held items in this game. That'd be so freaking whack. Poison Sting applying a defense down is like the same as like other poison moves. It translates to poison in the main games. Now, while its move pool is limited, I am pretty glad it does learn Snore because I thought that how Snore worked was kind of cool, but also obviously very stupid. And the reason I have it like that is because in the main games, you can only use it as an attack when you're asleep. So in this game, it's kind of like it gets enhanced when you have a debuff, because usually like stats effects, like I guess I literally just mentioned Poison Sting doing that because for poison gets the defense down. It's kind of like that. Oh wait, what's this? The knife references its willingness to kill. Please stop it. My Cascoon has me under. I didn't write this. What the? Oh God! But yes, now that we are done with those references, let's go to its all-around pros and cons. Oh God! You can just stay right here, away from my neck. Pat, pat. Every time I pet it, it actually increases its Harden Grudge. For its pros, its Harden Grudge allows it to deal stupidly high damage. And of course, Harden and Iron Defense are still great moves just for being able to defend from attacks. And honestly, you could probably do stuff like Harden to absorb the attacks, and then while the opponent's still recovering, then do one of your command grabs, most likely Bug Bite. But yeah, that's kind of a good thing he can do. It's kind of stupid. I keep mentioning stupid, but you know, this entire moveset is pretty stupid. Don't give me that look. You know what you've done. I will avenge my family someday, Cascoon Uchiha. I will kill you with every fiber of my being. Its walk and dash is allowed to use its aerial attacks pretty low to the ground, which is always very useful. Because it is in the air though, it is more vulnerable. It can't block. It can only rely on like Harden or Iron Defense to like armor through attacks, and even then if the opponent thinks you're gonna do that, they can do something like Pierce Harden or just like wait it out, because you can't move while you're using Harden or Iron Defense. So if you use it in the air, you're kind of just stuck there for a sec, which I guess I forgot to put in the cons. One sec. Can also be anti-air during those, and walking around is just like a general thing, so the opponent could probably just do it in neutral and it's just like, oh yes, this is safe, this is safe. He is a grappler with strong command grabs. I shouldn't have to say anything else. You can also apply debuffs, which are always a great thing. Speed down and defense down are pretty strong in this game, so he always has that, and along with his already ludicrous amount of damage he can do, that just like helps lock them down or helps them do more damage. When he gets a debuff though, it doesn't really matter because Snore just makes it powered up and then it removes it right away. It's burst attack. If you thought it was still tame, I have no idea what's wrong with you, but let's just see. You can angle it up or down even when you're on the ground, can use it in the air, does 1,000,000 damage, heals Cascoon, gives itself a debuff while putting itself right in front of the opponent, so you can just use Snore. Yeah, it's pretty busted. Okay, I don't know what else to say. I feel like it's a very obvious pro. Oh, and then one more pro. I almost missed it. Oopsie doodle. What does it say? Hides bodies well. What does that mean? So going on to its cons, you have no cons, only restricted to the game's limitations. Nothing wrong there, Cascoon. Now, Cascoon is kind of slow because it is a cocoon boy, and then it's also pretty weak without its Hardened Grudge. Luckily, though, you kind of do get your Hardened Grudge pretty easily because the opponent does have to hit you, and it's like frame 1 for its like invincibility kind of thing where it absorbs it. It usually has short range with a lot of its longer ranged attacks being a bit slow, like its anti-air is kind of slow. String Shot I mentioned as being a notable thing is pretty slow, not being able to reach full screen right away. It's not like Giga Drain or Hex. And while it is taking less damage from Harden and Iron Defense, it's still taking damage back to back, so it can rack up pretty quickly, especially since a lot of its other stuff is kind of risky. Like grabs are always pretty risky, so like all of its command grabs, and like I mentioned with the walks and dashes where it puts itself airborne. Luckily it does have a strong block and 660 HP to make up for this, but yeah, I can't, if the opponent just keeps wailing on them, it can be pretty hard for him, which is another issue he has. He doesn't have many get-offy tools, having to rely on usually his counterattack to push them away with the Spinning Blade or Poison Sting, though like risk being a DP that can only sometimes fool the opponent by not doing an entire block stream by moving away with it. Opponents who are really good at it would be able to realize, oh, he's moving away. Well, time to body him. You could probably go back out and then back in to like fool them, but you know what I mean. Like it's a DP, and DPs are always risky. Now, for how broken its Synergy Burst is, whether that's its enhanced Hardened Grudge mechanic or its burst attack, it does have to get a lot of synergy. So I'm just saying, if you let it get into burst mode and you lose the game with it, you deserve to lose. It also doesn't last as long as most burst modes, being 11 seconds. The only other one in the game like that is like Charizard's and the Zoric one I did last time. But you know, that's not the point. And then for last, he's a horrible businessman. I can't believe I'm in debt to this piece of shit. But yeah, that was What If Cascoon Was in Pokken that I did begrudgingly. fuck? You're just lucky you're kind of like my mini mascot of sorts, just being my OC with a cat that's just a Cascoon with a knife. I have no idea why I found it so funny when the tables have turned, and now he's finding it funny by threatening me over and over again. I do not appreciate this. But thank you guys so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please comment below what Pokemon you would like to see next. I always take requests, and it's always fun thinking of stuff like these for many different Pokemon. But yeah, also follow my Twitter and Twitch. I never really get to shill that much, besides just like the stuff in the bottom left. But you don't do that. It's always fun. And also subscribe here, obviously. But yeah, have a good one, guys. See ya.